Welcome, everyone. I am Michael Kraft, one of the coordinators of the Rockland Arts Festival, and tonight we are mastering the business of art with Mike Dulce and Lisa Fagan. Um, the festival's free events calendar is on our website, which is www.rocklandartsfestival.org, and you can check out the 84 visual artists
As well as the calendar.
as well as the calendar. Um, Please remember to keep yourselves muted and write all of your questions in the chat. And also, please share your art links or whatever in the chat for networking. So let's get started. Mike, you're up first.
All right. Thank you so much. We got a lot of mics and Lisa's. That's what we were joking about backstage, which was great. Thank you guys all for joining. I really do appreciate it. It's always awesome to be in a virtual room full of artists and people interested in learning about the business of art. I think it's a great topic. I think it's something that I obviously I know a lot about, but it's also something that I think all artists kind of have to come to terms with. I'll give you a little background about myself real quick here. I am a published graphic novelist. We'll do the play from current slide. So I'm Michael Dolce. I'm a writer, an artist, a published graphic novelist. My website is sirestudiosinc.com, sirestudiosinc.com. I also am co-publisher of another website called drenproductions.com. It's actually a publishing company I started with a friend of mine from college. I am also a writer and artist. Here's a couple of shots of some drawings I've done. Mainly, I focus almost exclusively on comic book art, but I was also a podcaster. I got to interview a lot of famous musicians, famous actors, Paul Reiser, Billy Corgan, Chris Cornell, Kevin Bacon, just to name a few. I'm married. I have two wonderful children, James and Bella. My wife is Christina, and our new cat, Snowflake, which you can see over here as well too. So that's just a little bit of my personal life. Professional wise, I started making comics in the sixth grade. I started. I mean, I was always. It was kind of neat. I actually thought about this recently. I was defined very early on as like an artist, which was actually kind of cool because I was always into drawing and I would consistently draw from the time, I mean, gosh, fourth grade even, we were making drawings of like Nintendo characters and making little comic books and Ghostbusters, and then we got into like Spider-Man and Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff. But I was always, it was always a very clear path for me. What do you want to do when you get older? So I want to be an artist. So I was always tagged with that. And in a way, that's a great way to go about life. Through high school, people would say, oh, what are you going to college for? I'm like, well, I'm going for art. So I went to SUNY New Paltz, graduated with a visual arts degree, had a creative writing minor. And people, again, people even in college, people in my major, well, I was always good at art, but I don't really know what I want to do. I always knew what I wanted to do. I always knew I wanted to write and draw comic books. And I spent the majority of my 4 years in college, especially the back half, living in the computer lab, working, figuring out. I was either in, the art studio learning how to draw, or I was in a computer lab learning how to digitally color comic books. I created my own font at one point using font making software. It was always centered around that. In addition to all this, I also run a creative studio. I also develop websites. In college, I took the website class, which was funny because back then there really was only one website class. And I excelled. I excelled because I said, well, I need to earn. I need to build an online store. I need to build something, in order to reach the masses. People are going to be on the internet. It's a way to cut the middleman out and really reach people. So I was able to do that. Right out of the gate, one of the first things I learned was failure, which was great. It was actually a great lesson. I was so determined that it was just going to work out that when it didn't, I had to really recalibrate. I had to figure out, okay, I spent 2 years the back half of my college career and the first half of post graduation, the first year out of post graduation, trying to pitch a comic book that ultimately my artwork just wasn't as professional as it could have been. I was trying to do too much, and it was a lesson that I learned, and that over time I ended up learning that collaboration with other artists is actually just as strong a lesson that you could get. And so it took a couple years out of college, but then I published my first book called The Sire. It was in 2006. I was working at a magazine at the time. It was Wizard Magazine. Wizard Magazine was the magazine about comic books when there were magazines back then, and it was again a great area to learn. It was a bullpen full of people that were just as into comic books and comic book art that I was. So it was great to be able to get feedback from them and figure out what worked, what didn't work. And then from there, I started seeing success. So from 2006 on, I started submitting new story ideas, new art ideas to different companies. I was published by Image Comics. If you've ever watched The Walking Dead, that's the company that published The Walking Dead. It was a comic book originally. It also published a movie you might have seen with Tom Hanks, Road to Perdition. They were the publisher of that, that before it became a movie. And so started to really excel in getting, myself out there. Found that I was stronger in the digital coloring area than the actual drawing of the figures. And so right around that time, I ended up getting a lot of jobs doing digital coloring, and that helped, get my foot in the door with a lot of companies, and that led to a series of books. Then in 2010, my editor, who, I had just published a new comic book called Descendant. It was again at Image Comics. My editor ended up getting fired or later that year. The publisher that I had managed to get, work my way into, ended up kind of downsizing what they were doing, and I was back at square one again. And it was a lot of trouble. I mean, I was basically now I had been kind of climbing the ladder, and I was kind of back to square one, and I didn't know exactly what to do next, or how to get myself back in the game. And I got to be honest, there was definitely a couple years where, I
Mike,
was kind of lost. Yeah. Oh,
we
yeah.
have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Is it still a good idea for artists to send in their art ideas to art publishers?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get to it. I'll get to it. Don't worry. We're gonna go full circle with that. Um, so definitely, yeah. Hold on to that question because I will answer that. Yeah, I'll answer that shortly. So in about around the 2011 2012, I literally I at that point had no idea what to do. I was working doing website design for an IT company, and then I learned the world of networking, and I understood what ended up becoming a great lesson. And I started my own business at that point. I took the jump. I started my own business to get my time back. I ended up saying, you know what? I'll go out and get clients. I'll go out and deliver the work, and then with that, I can get myself back in the business. And one of the things I did was I met a radio host. He ran an internet radio station. He said, "Oh, you should do a radio show." And I thought about it, and then with the help of some colleagues, I said, the radio show is great if you're trying to get more web design business. I'm trying to make more comic books. I'm trying to get back in the comic book industry. And they go, you could invite all your old contacts onto your radio show, and this way you'll give them something. In return, you're going to build your network up. You're going to be giving them a chance to spotlight their books, to spotlight their businesses, and it was like a light bulb. I said, that's fantastic. So in 2016, I launched my own podcast. This is back before everyone had a podcast. So it's called Secrets of the Sire. It was again kind of revolved around my business, my brand, and it was also the time that Facebook Live had first come about, which was very just. I don't believe in luck, but I do believe you get lucky. There's things that happen to you. I just was lucky that Facebook Live was around. However, I was prepared to take advantage of that luck. Facebook, because of their algorithm, we started just live streaming. And again, it's 2016, so the word live streaming, that really wasn't something that was happening back then. Facebook, the algorithm, anybody who was shooting video would just direct people to your feed. So at one point, I mean, we would get Facebook Lives of 2,500 live people, just strangers we'd never even met before, watching our show. We would talk about comics, movies, TV, and pop culture. We would get people involved in that. And what was awesome about it was at one point we were getting 20,000 video views a week, just putting our stuff out there. And so the podcast quickly got me back entrenched in my network. Ended up being published by a publisher I had worked with 10 years earlier. They said to me, oh, we didn't even know you were still around. So again, it kind of did its job. It worked. In 2019, the podcast caught the attention of a company out in LA. It's called Rogue Matter. They're a digital publishing company. They make comics, movies, they make TV shows. Well, I'm sorry, they make comics, ebooks, and the CEO has had 2 movies optioned and 1 movie made, which was pretty exciting. It was a movie called The Covenant. It was a horror movie back in 2004, and they ended up buying my podcast and bringing me on as chief creative officer. So that's what I've been doing ever since. So I work with Rogue Matter. Simultaneously, a buddy of mine from college was growing his publishing business, and he knew my background, self-publishing, and so brought me into there, and that's drenproductions.com. And lo and behold, 10 years after I literally hit, rock bottom, I now have all my books are in stores. They're in stores nationwide. We're doing Kickstarters right now, which is outstanding as well too. So Kickstarter is another avenue to promote your stuff. And shameless plug time, because I'm a big fan of shameless plugs. You can get one of my new Kickstarters up right now. It's Plan 79 from Outer Space. It's a sequel to the greatest worst movie of all time, from Ed Wood. But anyway, to answer the questions originally, is it still a good idea to send stuff out to publishers? I think it is. I think ultimately there are so many avenues, and we're talking about the business of making art. I think the number one thing that you have to understand is that once you set about doing this not as a hobby, not because I enjoy painting a picture, but I'd like to make a living off it, you have to come to terms with now you're an entrepreneur. And that's something that I didn't honestly want to come to terms with. When I was in college, I had a girlfriend, and she's like, you're too talented not to be making a lot of money. And I go, oh, don't worry, the money will come. I'm not worried about the money. I'm pure, I'm all about the work and the art and the creativity. And I said, and in a way that's great. You need that. You definitely need that purity as well. You got to be doing something that you're passionate about. You can't just do something because, oh, well, that's a new trend, so I'm going to try to follow that trend so I can cash in. That's always the wrong way to think about things. But on the flip side, you do have to think about, and I know the next speaker, Lisa, is going to talk about this a lot, is you got to think about, okay, what is my niche? What do I do well? What am I passionate about? Now, how do I transform that? And how do I come to terms with the fact that I am both an artist, creative, and I am now an entrepreneur? I'm here to make money off of what I'm doing. And there's nothing wrong with making money doing what you love doing. I took a networking course. It was a week-long networking course right before I launched my business. And the woman had a great section. She talked about the if-when scenario, or sorry, the if-then scenario. Well, if this happens, then I can do this. And that's how I had been living prior to 2015. I was doing my book at Image Comics, and I thought to myself, well, if this takes off, then I can quit my job and I can just focus on that. It sold pretty well. I sold about 5,000 copies of the first issue. I sold about 3,000 copies of the second issue. I sold about 2,000 copies of the third issue. They wanted to do more with the series, but then, circumstances out of my control. They ended up downsizing. My editor, was let go. They ended up downsizing. I didn't have an outlet to go anywhere. And again, if you live in the if-then scenario, then you're waiting for something to happen as opposed to making something happen for yourself. Sending stuff to publishers, just to go back to that question, I still think it's a great idea. I think it's great, but you think about it in a way of, well, I hope this gets in. No, work on figuring out, what it is that I'm passionate about, and if it doesn't get in, send it to another publisher. If it doesn't get in, send it to another publisher. And then if you exhaust all your resources to send to a publisher, then you have to start working on, okay, how can I do this myself? I would say be driven with it. But there are a lot of avenues and options out there today that, I didn't have, back then. So I know there's some
Yeah, we have a
other
question.
questions.
Would this process that you discussed work for visual novels,
Oh
digital
yeah.
active stories?
So I'll say this though, actually, right? So one of the things that we're finding now, Kickstarter is something that people are familiar with now. I did my first Kickstarter back in 2014. So even in between when I was struggling to figure out like how do I get back into this industry. Kickstarter came across my radar, and this is back before everyone kind of knew about Kickstarter. And I thought to myself, I don't want to ask my friends and family for money. That seems weird. Um, what Kickstarter has now become for a lot of visual artists, comic book artists, independent creators, people just inventing things too. It has become a distribution channel. People go to Kickstarter to find the next thing that they want to get into. They go to Kickstarter to find independent artists, independent comic book creators, independent stories, things that they're tired of. The stuff they're seeing in movie theaters. They're tired of stuff they're reading in stores. So they're actually going there looking for new stuff. And once you realize that Kickstarter is a distribution channel, you can start using that to, I mean, it's not asking friends and family for money. You're basically using like a pre-order a system, a pre-sale system. And again, I'm not going to take anything from Lisa because I'm sure she's going to talk about this. You start by building your audience first. You start by getting people behind you um, with what you're doing. So instead of asking friends and family for money, you're asking friends and family to support you, to get you started so that you attract the attention of people that don't know who you are and are interested in your work. So when it comes to visual novels, now I will say this, digital interactive stories doesn't appeal as well as comic books do on Kickstarter. We've actually tried them. Novels don't do as well, but there is an audience for that. And I see the follow-up question is how can creators get attention of readers for visual novels? You have to live on social media for that. I gotta be honest with you. I think social media for novelists is very, very important. Goodreads, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Goodreads. Goodreads has its own social network. Substack is huge. I think Substack is the next big thing for writers. If you're a novelist, you should be on Substack right now. It combines a newsletter platform with a social media infrastructure. I have my own Substack on it. I have about 18,000 people on my newsletter list. I built that up going to comic book conventions. But what's nice about it, I've noticed since I've been on Substack, because it's got its own infrastructure built in, I'm picking up 2 to 3 new subscribers every week. I'll just get a notification. So and so is following you. Other writers can recommend you. If you know other writers, it becomes a community. They'll put their newsletter, they'll put your newsletter in theirs as a recommendation. You'll get recommendations to go across there. Start following people, start interacting with people. One of the things that has made Kickstarter so successful for us is that in addition to kickstarting my own book, I actually back. I mean, I've backed over 200 projects. We've worked with other comic book creators. Hey, can you plug my book? Sure, I'll plug your book if I have a campaign going. Um, you know, I'm sorry this is so like high level. I mean, I could literally do an entire presentation just on how to do Kickstarters. So I'm happy to answer more questions. But as much as I feel like I'm only going to be able to give you a high level view on all this stuff. So other questions. What are alternative ways to grow your audience? Well, alternative to what, I guess, right? Email newsletter is the most valuable thing that you possibly can do. I feel like this is something that digital marketers have kind of, yeah, Lisa, I know, Lisa, I know, see, Lisa, you should have went first. I don't know why, we flipped a coin. That was it. I don't know. Um, she'll go into detail about the email newsletter, but the email newsletter is so important because think about this. How many spam emails do you get that you never signed up for, right? Delete and block. How many email newsletters have you signed up for that you might not read every email that comes into you, but because you made the decision to follow it? I'll give you a great example. My Starbucks app. I signed up for the Starbucks newsletter. Why? Because every once in a while they'll send me a deal and I go, oh, this is great. And I will never unsubscribe from it because I subscribe to it because I enjoy going to Starbucks. I enjoy getting a deal from them. I enjoy getting the bonus stars from them. It's the same concept. If someone is interested in your work and wants to learn more, they will subscribe to your newsletter. Then you can keep sending them stuff. Don't be shy about sending them stuff. Don't be afraid to send you stuff. If people do unsubscribe, it happens. It's okay. But chances are they're going to sit there and they might read what you're writing. But at the very least, you're sending stuff. I subscribe to a bunch of my buddies' newsletters. I think I read maybe one every month. They might send 3 or 4 a month to me. I might read at one every month, but I don't unsubscribe. I try to like and I try to comment. There's another friend of mine. She was my editor. She has her own Substack now, the one that got fired. She has a great Substack. I try to like, I try to comment, I try to share, I try to support her. She's supported me all these years. Um, it's a great way to build an audience. If there's book shows, book fairs, that's huge. I can't tell you. So my partner and I at Dren Productions, I mean, we would hit up comic book conventions. I don't do as much traveling now. I don't have to, thank goodness. But I mean, I would go to maybe 6 conventions a year. He would go to like 10 or 12, and we would get, um, I mean, 200, 300 people to sign up for our stuff. It's a great opportunity. Also, what you can do is we would just give out. We would have extra product, right? We would have. So if we do a Kickstarter, we have bookmarks left over and magnets left over and trading cards left over. We have our wheel on our table. Come spin the wheel. Okay, do I get to spin the wheel for free? Just give us your email address, and you can spin the wheel and you win a prize. And people would spin the wheel. They would get something. They get a free comic. They get a free bookmark. They thought it was cool. A sticker, anything, a sticker of all little things. A 99-cent sticker. And then we would be able to, send them an email. A couple days later, hey, thank you for signing for our newsletter list. We met you at so and so convention. That's a tremendous way. We built that newsletter list up organically by doing that. People that come and buy your stuff, pitch them your work. I mean, that's a direct consumer. That's someone you can get. There are book fairs everywhere. There are trade shows everywhere. There are small one-day trade shows. I would almost recommend starting that way rather than trying to go and do like a large fair. But if you can get yourself in front of people, that's the way to organically grow your audience. All right, next question says, I'm on Substack for photography and exploring creative writing with imagery. There's quite a robust photography and artist community also on Substack. Absolutely. I don't social media well. I don't internet well. Honestly, ironically enough, I build websites. I don't really enjoy social media because I think from a communication standpoint, I love this. I love just sitting in front of people. I think that's why they asked me to do this because I told them I could keep talking. I'm actually getting over a cold, which is why my voice is a little shot tonight. But I could power through easily and just keep talking for an hour, an hour, an hour. On social media, I can't do that. I feel like it's just you talk and then you talk and then you talk and then you talk, and usually no one listens to what anyone else is actually really saying. That being said, it's a necessary evil. My partner at Dren Productions also is awesome. He is the most awkward dude you will ever meet in person, but man, he can internet really well. So if you can find a person that you can partner up with, that's really good at. I mean, he's discovering stuff, online. He has discovered so many different channels of business for us. Like, hey, we need to have our books up on this thing. Hey, let's look. There's these award show I just found. There's this retailer summit that we're attending virtually in 2 weeks. I don't know how he finds all this stuff. I really don't. I don't. Like I said, I don't do the internet well. I do the in person. I do the business meeting aspect better. I do the socialization aspect better. But if you can partner up with someone that does internet well, if you got kids or grandkids that are great on social media, hire them. They'll work for free. They'll get you on there. But it's definitely where you kind of need to be to start growing an audience. And you can do it just simply by interacting. Follow other people, start talking to other people, comment on it. I have a rule: stay positive or don't press send. It's as a writer. So here's the other thing, right? And maybe I guess we're getting close to 7:30. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, we have one more question there.
we'll turn it over to Lisa in a second. But what I would sit there and tell you is it is so tempting to want to respond to politics on social media. However, much like I identified myself very, very young, at a young age as an artist, right? When you're on social media, you need to identify yourself as what you're trying to get accomplished. If you want to become a political commentator, awesome. There's Substacks for that. There's plenty of Substacks for that. I wish you the best of success. If you want to succeed as a writer or an artist, I would keep that to a minimum. I would stay positive. I would not even, let's forget even the politics aspect. Let's just say if you hated something, don't post about what you hate. Post about what you like. Respond to what you like. You will build more credible audience that way as much as possible. When people subscribe to Substack, you get to build an email list or other contact information, or the anonymous. No, you get to build a contact. Yeah, you get to build a contact list because they fill out their profile, so you know the emails that are there and you know the people that are there. What Substack, the only thing that Substack doesn't do as well as something, let's say like a Mailchimp or a Constant Contact. Mailchimp and Constant Contacts are email newsletter platforms. They are geared to doing targeted email campaigns for product. I mean, that's what they're built to do, right? They're built for you to set up, a sales funnel, get people into a sales funnel, yada yada yada. Again, Lisa will be doing a great job with talking about all this stuff. Um, Substack doesn't quite have the reporting yet. It doesn't quite have like the niches yet. But what it does for us as artists, it gives a super simple platform, a very great presentation of your work, and it has an infrastructure built in, a creative infrastructure already built in, so that when you start building these, this email list, again, you can debate, you can decide how you want to do it. I think most people end up signing up for things on Substack because they want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about your work, but they also want to learn about your point of view. And I think that's the most important thing when you're doing a Substack. Treat it almost like a little mini article or something that you can, kind of uh, get people's attention without being too salesy. Oh, question please, but I thought print is dead. Um, Depends. Print is not dead. It's a big fish in a small pond. Sorry. Yeah, big fish, small pond. I don't think print is dead. I think print is evolving. I think print gets a little expensive, but you're still gonna find a lot of people out there. I love print. I love it. So I don't think it's dead. I think it's just another channel. What do you
Great.
think? Look at that, 7:30 on the dot.
Hey, that's
Boom.
great. That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And now I get to introduce Lisa Fagan. Lisa?
Taking myself off mute. Hi, everybody. At first, I want to say, Mike, that was awesome. Um, so,
Appreciate
a
it.
lot of the things that Mike said, I'm gonna touch on as well. I come at this from a little bit different perspective. My background is marketing, so I've worked for some very large companies, some uh, companies like Benjamin Moore. In fact, at Benjamin Moore, I was the original social media manager. I launched their social media channels when they had none. So I'm getting a big kick out of the things that Mike was saying about, I don't do social well. And so the idea of partnering with other people that do things that you don't do well should be a key theme in your marketing of your art. And one of the things that Mike touched on, and I will as well, is that the idea is that you're all talented artists. You create beautiful things, and you must create a brand for that art if you're going to sell your art. And I know that a lot of artists that I speak to, they get a little squeamish about the idea of making money from their art. Um, they feel like deep in their soul, they have to do art for art's sake. Um, and yes, that's true. You should feed your soul, but it's okay to make money on your art. And that starts with creating a brand. You have to build that strong presence in whatever channel you're going to do that in. So whether it's you have a website, you have social media, you might have print like Mike does, Substack communities, in-person events like the Rockland Arts Festival, all of these things are important, and none of them should stand alone. They are all pieces of a puzzle that create this brand. So like Mike, I also build websites. My business is Blue Beacon Digital. And because in addition to being a marketing person, I am also a photographer. So I, I know that feeling of, wait, someone wants to buy my piece. That's like, it was a foreign thing for me the first time I sold a photo. Um, so create that visibility. My advice is start with building the community and build yourself a website. If you want your art to be seen in exhibits, if you want curators to find you, they have to know where to look. They may not see your art up in whatever gallery you have made your pieces seen in. But what if the curator is halfway around the world? They have to have some place to see your art. So I want to talk a little bit about what are some key elements you should have on your website. So obviously, you need to be able to display your art. And I can't stress this enough. Make sure that you have good photos of your art, whatever your medium is. Because if only seeing it in person is the only way it's going to do it justice. If they can't see some element of it online, then it might as well be sitting in a dark room. So you must have good photography. And if photography is not your thing, then partner with someone who is. There's enough art in the world that we can all lean on others who do other things well. Like I, for the life of me, could never do the kind of art that Mike does, but maybe I could take a picture of it for him, that kind of thing. So those are some elements of make sure that you have good photography, build that brand, make the connections, connect with other artists. It's okay to like and follow other artists. We're not all competing against each other. So there's enough art in the world for you to um, be able to network with other artists, maybe there's a partnership with other artists, and all the people that follow them are now introduced to your art where maybe they hadn't before. So look for those opportunities, and social media is just one of those things. You have to do it, and you have to do it well. Um, it's where people are visually looking for, especially your art pieces. And Michael, do we have a question?
Yes, we have a question. Rebuilding a brand. As a photographer, does that mean I must shoot the same style or content all the time for a homogeneous body of work? I am super eclectic. Is that bad?
No, absolutely not. It is not bad. We are all a sum of our parts. So, as a photographer, I don't always shoot the same kinds of things. If I was a painter, I wouldn't always paint the same kinds of things. It's important that people get a feel for who you are, and on your website, you can separate things out by collection.
Mm.
Maybe there's, um, the things that are true to life, and then you have your abstracts, and then you have, maybe it's black and white versus things in color. You can separate them out by collection and have that be a way that people discover you. Maybe they come looking for the abstract and they stumble on the black and white. So those are just different ways. You shouldn't feel um, tightened in a box of in order to create a brand, I must always do something this way. Your brand, you are the sum of your parts.
We have more questions.
Great.
I am on Etsy and feel I get lost and totally tweaking my keyboards for the SEO search engine. Should I return to my own website?
So Etsy is a great tool for artists that create like niche type of pieces. So you have somebody that is specifically looking for that whatever in blue. I mean, I can't even think of an example at this point. But I don't think it should be an either or. I think you need both because some people may not find you on Etsy. You can use your website to drive to your Etsy store so that you don't have to build the e-commerce piece on your website. Because building e-commerce and selling your art directly on your website can be a bear of a task. And sometimes it's just not worth the effort to do it directly on your website. So to sell in other use other forms to sell your product.
Okay, we also have a question. What are the elements of building a brand?
Okay. So in building a brand, we talked about you need a website, you need some social media, you need in real life events. All of those things need to be linked together. None of them should stand alone. They should all be connected. But you need all of them in some element. So I wouldn't neglect one for the other. But building a brand means telling people who you are as an artist. Make sure that you have that artist statement. Make sure that your website and your social media really tell the story of who you are as an artist and the kind of work that you create.
Okay, so it's not really a question, it's a statement, but this person says, but as an artist who is all over the place, I struggle to find a core audience.
Okay. That's actually okay. I know that everyone thinks that they need to focus in on a core audience for a particular maybe flavor of art, for lack of a better term. But if you do the work and create the pathways to your work, then people will find you. You know, there is a certain element of if you have the pieces in place, you can take the if you build it, they will come mentality. But you've got to put in the work. You've got to market yourself. And I feel strongly that a lot of artists really struggle with self-promotion. Don't be afraid of self-promotion. And all of these things that we talk about, like the networking piece that Mike brought up, creating a brand, the website, the Substack, the social media, all of those are elements of, they're all pieces of the puzzle. So don't be afraid.
Okay, so well, all right, wait a second. Let me go back. Sorry. Okay, I've had my website for 15 years. What's the best way to spruce it up?
It's a great question because I think that every website, just think of it like your wardrobe. Okay. Open your closet and look at the clothes that are sitting in your closet. Um, Michael, are you speaking to me? Because you're muted.
No, no.
Oh, no,
Definitely.
Mike cracked. Okay, sorry.
Sorry,
Um,
not me. Yeah, sorry.
sorry, I saw you speaking and I didn't know if you were speaking to me. Sorry. So think of it like your wardrobe. Open your closet, look at the clothes that are hanging in your closet, and think about are you wearing the same clothes that you wore 15 years ago, or does your wardrobe need a reboot? I know mine does. So if you're looking at your website and you look at other websites, look at how does a website that you really enjoy, what does it do for you? Does it give you a feeling, or is it great because it's easy to navigate? All of these things need to be true. So a good website should be easy to navigate. It should have your art prominently featured, and um, and it should be um, mobile friendly. So most of us look at websites from our phones or our tablets, and websites that were built 15 years ago may not be mobile friendly. So make sure that your website um, is as easy to navigate and friendly to whoever comes to it, user friendly, whether it's on mobile or desktop.
Okay. Let me get back up to your, this isn't moving. Why isn't this moving? I can't move it. Oh, there we go. Okay. No, the other way. I need to go the other way. Sorry. Okay. How to attract people to your website.
Okay. So one of the most important things is it shouldn't just be what looks pretty. Okay. So we all know that it's got to look pretty. But there's one of the previous questions touched on it is the SEO. So if you're unaware, SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it's what happens behind the scenes. When you have a photo, a photo of your work rather, it should have a description of the work. There needs to be a certain amount of copy on your website in order for the search engines to pick it up. And if you want those search engines to pick up your website in searches, then it needs to be there. Your name needs to be on your website. Um, Make sure that you're not getting too creative in the in the domain that you choose. Because if people are searching for you, so let's give the example of I go to an art exhibit and I find a piece that I absolutely love and I want to get in touch with the artist. And I forget what the name of the piece was and I'm trying to type in a description of it, but I know the artist's name. And if I can type in that artist's name and maybe a description of the work, I'm much more likely to find it than if I'm just, you know, picking at needles in the heads in a haystack. Um, so in attracting people to, if the question is attracting people to your website, make sure that your domain name is on everything. It should be in your email signature. It should be in your social media profile. It should be in on every networking event that you go to. There should be some way for you to share your website address. And then ask people to share your posts, post to social media. All of these things are all avenues that drive traffic to your website. In addition to things like getting people to sign up for an email newsletter. I want to touch on that because there was something that Mike said before about, collecting names for on Substack. If you're I'm a huge fan of email marketing. It's how I got my start in digital marketing. Um, but you have to make a commitment. If you're going to start collecting names from people, you have to make a commitment that you're going to push out content on a regular basis. You can't just take their names and once a year send them an email. They'll completely forget that they signed up for it and it'll get marked as spam and that'll be the end of it. But if you can make a commitment to say, even if it's just once or twice a month, that you're going to send them some kind of update. Let's say um, a, a, a little news piece on I am going to be exhibiting at such and such art event. Come see me at this reception. I've won this award. I'm now a member of this committee. Um, I saw this great artist. I hope you like them. And you can promote other people's art, but you have to make a commitment to push out content on a regular basis.
There were some questions that were answered, but I figure I'd just throw this out to you.
Yeah,
AI was a topic, so
yeah,
maybe what's your take on AI helping with websites and
sure.
et cetera?
Yeah. So I will say that I am fascinated by what AI is capable of. And I think that for me, AI is a great brainstorming tool. So, yes, it's a tool for tell me how to do something, but it's also, I will use it for like, I have a blog on my website and I'll use it to brainstorm ideas for things that I want to write about. Um, I will use it to help create that content. And as long as you don't push it out word for word, and have ChatGPT write the whole thing for you, don't do that. Promise me you won't do that. But but if you can take an idea that comes out of a brainstorming session with an AI tool and put a personal feel to it, a personal story in it, and make it truly human, then AI can be a great tool for that. I mean, that is, I think, the power of AI. It should never replace the written word written by a live human, but it can be a tool with which to help you write better or come up with ideas.
Okay, that's all the questions that are in the chat. So,
Great.
Lisa, sorry,
Yeah.
can you give an example of that? What you were just talking about with AI, using it as a tool and keeping it human? Because I
Yeah.
like that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. Sure. I'll give you a real world example. So, let's say you want to come up with um, things that get great uh, traction on the internet. Everybody loves a list. And I don't mean like I don't mean to like make fun of this, but how many times do you see something on the internet and you're like, the top 5 reasons you should do what? The top 10 ways to do this. Well, the reality is we all click on those things because we all want quick and easy to digest types of things. So if you wanted to use ChatGPT to say, please give me some idea, give me 10 ideas of things that I can, um, uh, themes for each season of the year. So maybe you want to use it to help create your own art. Like, what are some things I could draw or paint or create or photograph? Give me, 10 ideas. And then you can elaborate on those 10 ideas, or you can use it to ask, you can ask all sorts of questions. I've used ChatGPT for the most bizarre things. I've used it for, help me create a grocery list of things I can make for lunch for a week. Okay, and it shoots out a list. And so it's kind of a funny thing, but you can use it to help create ideas of things you want to write about. Um, if I said, if I asked ChatGPT to give me ideas on 5 things that would help artists create new content, and you can't just ask the question that way. The idea with AI is to give it as much humanity as possible, right? Think about how you would ask the question if you and I were sitting across the table and you were asking me question after question after question, and I was taking each piece of information and building upon the answer. So if you wanted to use AI to help create ideas for things that you should create, or ways that you could communicate with others, or all of the above. And I would recommend that people go in and kind of play around with it. And the more you fine tune the way the question is asked, the better the answers will come out. And then take that answer, and this is where the humanity part comes in. Take that answer and weave in a personal story Because that's the thing that AI cannot do for you. It cannot create your personal experience into whatever you're producing. You have to put that piece of it in. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, so we have one last question,
Great.
and that is the use of AI in photography. If you approve, and how much is too much?
Um, yeah, that's hard. Um, so I it's a difficult question to answer because I don't I don't believe that AI should ever take the place of art. Um, However, there are tools within photography, and we've all been using them for years in how we saturate the color, but that's from the human eye. If you're using AI to, let's say, in a photograph, if the photograph you've taken isn't as vibrant as what you saw through the lens, you had a different setting on your camera, there was a shadow, somebody walked by, whatever. We've all been using tools that are within Photoshop and things like that will help saturate the color or take out a shadow. And we're doing it manually. And what AI is doing it automatically. So, but it still requires the artists themselves to make those adjustments to the actual piece. So there are I don't like the idea of AI replacing photography and I don't approve of that because it takes jobs away from photographers, it takes jobs away from models, it takes jobs away from everybody that's part of the creative process. But if you're talking about using AI um, to help improve on something that already exists, then I think there is a place for those kinds of tools.
I was just going to add too, AI when it comes to art is the slippery slope because um, there is a huge human component to art that is supported online. And if you're to use AI, the CEO of Rogue Matter at one point asked, "Hey, can we get AI to do this?" And I go, "If we do that, then we will go against our own brand of being a place for artists because it is not seen as that." So, using it as a tool to kind of help, I've used it to help write some scripts for me
Mhm.
sometimes where I'll plot out the idea and I'm like, I just need someone to break this down for me, and they'll break it down. It won't be great, but it'll give me a starting point, and then I can go in and I can make the script better. Um, Use it for reference for art. Hey, I need something that looks like this, so I can hand it to the artist so that they know what they're drawing. But beyond that, you're gonna get into a slippery slope. It's gonna be generations from now. I'm curious as to whether or not younger generations are gonna feel the same attachment to humans that we do because we are human and we come from a generation. I mean, I was born. I know what a rotary phone is and an iPhone is, and so there's a history there. But I'm curious to know in 10, 20, 30 years from now, with the kids growing up with just phones and stuff, whether they're going to care. But right now, people care.
It's true. It's true. And it's just like everything else. There has to be a human element to it. There has to be a human element to the art that we create and the messaging that we put out. But if you use AI like you do, Mike, to help map out a story, I don't think that that's the same thing as using AI to create an ad campaign.
Right.
I've seen some things that just look, when you look at them, they look pretty horrible because if you really look close at them, it's like, no woman's neck is that long, or it's just not it's just not based in reality, and
Well,
it's
it
really
doesn't have
not.
6 fingers too.
Six fingers, yeah. Unless this is the Princess Bride and you're looking for the six-fingered man. So yeah.
I laugh though too because I had such trouble drawing hands in college. So I'm relieved to know that AI also has difficulty drawing hands. I
Yeah,
feel at least you know
that's true.
I'm no better than a computer.
Can I mention something? Um, Lisa, I've taken excuse me, one AI class in photography. I think it was given by Dave Cross. And it was interested. I'm not really that interested in it, but again, it's at least photographically, it just seems to be tools and what you can do to kind of play around with your image. But I like the images I make. So I agree with you about saturation, exposure, and Photoshop. That's really all I do, other than resizing and a really good caption. But I like the images that I make. So I don't really want to do something way out and expand on that because then it changes who I am. It changes how I see. So yeah, but I felt just as a photographer, I at least needed to spend a little time with it and see, what it is about. But I doubt that I'll go in that direction.
And thankfully, most of the AI tools that are out there right now that are used to create something from scratch. I'm not talking about using a tool to fine tune something that is created by a human. Most of the tools out there that create things from scratch really do not do a great job because there is no human element to it. That is not the way her hair should flow in the wind, you know. There so I'm hopeful that we're a long way off from um, a blind substitution of AI in art. Um, but I do stand behind, using it as a tool for things like brainstorming and fine tuning a script or things like that, as long as you're starting with a human element.
Thank you so much, guys. This was so informative. Mike and Lisa, you guys were incredible. And stay tuned, everybody, because hopefully we'll get Mike and Lisa back for a future webinar. Um, so please check out the Rockland Arts Festival website for the free events calendar and for the 84 visual artists. And also, the Rockland Arts Festival has been made possible by the Arts Alive grant admission by Arts Westchester and through the support of our sponsors. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.